Hello, my name is Sarah Viñas, and I'm Assistant Director of Housing and Community with the town of Chapel Hill. I'm excited to share with you the town's journey towards language justice. I'll start by sharing context of why we embarked on creating a language access plan. I'll then highlight the key components of our plan, which was unanimously adopted by our town council last November. I'll then share with you the progress that we've made over the last year in implementing the plan and lessons learned. And then I'll conclude by giving a look ahead of what's next in our journey towards language justice. Our focus on language access aligns with our town council's goal to create a vibrant and inclusive community, and our new strategic plan objective, which is listed here. Additionally, our work in this area is an important step in facilitating increased engagement from community members who've historically faced institutionalized barriers to participation in local government, and is consistent with the equitable community engagement goals of our community connections strategy. There are a variety of reasons that we embarked on creating a townwide language access plan. First, it responds to the highest priority of immigrant and refugee residents that we engage through our Building Integrated Communities initiative. Our language access plan also puts in place policies and procedures that will allow residents to communicate with the town in their preferred language. Through the language access plan, we will also comply with federal requirements outlined in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And more broadly, as I just mentioned, a language access plan aligns with our town values of inclusion. To develop a language access plan, we started by engaging hundreds of residents through our Building Integrated Communities process, through focus groups, interviews, and community meetings. These were held with interpretation in 6 different languages: English, Spanish, Burmese, Karen, Arabic, and Mandarin. We also surveyed town departments to get a sense of what their experiences were with residents who speak languages other than English, and also what their needs were. We also looked at language access best practices in dozens of language access plans from across the state and the country. All of these were key inputs into the design and components of our plan. Once we developed a draft plan, we shared it with the town council and key community partners for their input. And then we made some revisions and took the final proposed plan to the town council, which was unanimously approved with enthusiasm in November of 2019, which we were really excited about. Our language access plan has 3 main components, which I'll briefly walk you through now. The first is a needs assessment, and this was really the foundation of our plan. The factors that are listed here are provided through the Department of Justice's policy guidance for generating a language access plan in the Civil Rights Act. The standard for compliance, which is outlined in the DOJ guidance, is individualized, flexible, and fact-dependent. So organizations like ours have a certain degree of flexibility in balancing these factors, as long as we are taking reasonable steps to ensure meaningful access to information and services. So these factors inform the policies and procedures in our plan, as well as helped us identify the town's primary languages. So I'll show you now some of the key data points that we looked at in our needs assessment. And again, this was really helpful to us in our design. The next component of our plan outlines the policies and procedures. So this is really the meat of it. And I'll first review the language assistance policies, and then the employee training and incentive policies. Our plan outlines that the town will provide interpretation and translation services free of charge for all town programs and services. These services are available across all town departments, And we use a variety of methods to notify residents that the town translates vital documents and emergency communications into our primary languages, which you'll see on the next slide. The town will provide on-demand interpretation for meetings, and we also commit in the plan to using competent, trained, and culturally sensitive interpreters and translators. Here's what our plan outlines in terms of language assistance services. As a quick reminder, the difference between translation and interpretation is that a translator converts written text and an interpreter converts oral text, oral messages. Translation is done in advance in the town's primary languages as shown here. These are our most common language groups identified from the American Community Survey data, town service data, refugee arrival data, and information gathering through BIC engagements. And as I already mentioned, vital documents may include applications such as the public housing application, notices for free language assistance services, and more. Our plan outlines that interpretation is available in any language that's offered through a local language assistance service or a telephone language line. We ask that residents seeking interpretation provide us with at least 48 hours notice to ensure adequate time to make arrangements for interpreters, but we will make our best effort to accommodate any request regardless of when we receive it. We knew that another key ingredient to making progress towards language justice was to increase knowledge, experience, and skills among our own employees. So we included in the plan requirements for employee training and an incentive for pay. Our plan outlines that town offer language service training and a pay incentive to bilingual or multilingual staff who speak the town's primary languages, complete trainings, and are willing to use their language skills as needed. We modeled the pay incentive off of the police department's existing incentive. The final component of our plan focuses on monitoring and updating. The plan specifies that the town will conduct an annual review of demographic data, such as the number of LEP or low English proficiency residents, and we'll also look at usage of town services, such as how often interpreters are used for town meetings. We'll also look at our internal staff capacity, including training and language skills of employees. And lastly, we'll look at feedback. We'll get feedback from residents regarding the effectiveness of the LAP and language services provided by the town. And this is really the most critical piece, I would say, of our monitoring plan. Our language access plan also includes a variety of appendices with the survey instruments that we designed, as well as additional background information of our plan. Now, since Council approved our language access plan about 11 months ago now, the real work has really begun of implementing the plan and bringing it to life. So the first thing that we focused on was doing outreach to residents and community partners to let them know about the plan and what benefits would now be available to them as a result of our plan. We developed multilingual one-page documents summarizing the plan that could be pushed out to our community partners. We developed multilingual web communications and social media posts, and held a variety of one-on-one meetings with key community partners. We also involved community partners in the process of starting to design language access plan procedures to really get down in the nitty-gritty of, okay, how do we make this interaction with the town language accessible? We also did one-on-one meetings with town department leadership so that they were clear on what the expectations were going for as a result of the plan being approved. We have also focused on building staff capacity to carry out the plan. We've conducted some staff trainings on language access in collaboration with Tilde Language Justice Cooperative. We've also provided a lot of technical assistance to town departments to help them think through how to be in compliance with the plan and how to start making progress to make their services accessible. We also developed a plan for the employee pay incentive implementation for this fiscal year, and due to the impacts of the pandemic, we were not able to pursue that this year, but we do have a plan that we hope to be able to put in place next fiscal year. Another key area of focus has been on carrying out language assistance services. We put in place contracts with language service organizations once the plan was adopted so that we have options available for use by town departments. We also purchased interpretation equipment and have started the hard work of identifying critical communications and translating them. Over the last 11 months, we've provided interpretation for 15 public meetings and translated hundreds of communications into the town's primary languages. Finally, I wanted to highlight that as we have worked to implement our language access plan, the pandemic has presented an opportunity to accelerate its implementation. Given the urgency of communicating with residents' key health and safety messages during this time, we've had an opportunity to rapid fire implement many of the policies and procedures identified in our LAP. On the slide, you can see here just a few of the examples of the translated documents that we've prepared and distributed to residents and community partners. In addition to making information available on our website, we've also intentionally pushed it out to community partners who then help share it with their networks. Now, what have we learned through this process so far? One of the first and most critical things that we've learned is the amazing value of and critical nature of having community involvement in the design of the plan. So we had lots of resident involvement from the beginning, and that was really the impetus, as I said earlier on, in creating a language access plan. And we've seen that time and again, having that input and involvement from people in the community who have a need for language access has just been so essential to our design. Another key learning has been the importance of getting organizational buy-in. So we decided to go big. We decided to not create individual department language access plans, but to create an organization-wide plan. And in order for that to be responsive to what departments need and also be successful, we knew that we had to get their buy-in early on. So we did things like meet with them at the beginning, survey them multiple times, give them opportunities to respond and provide input on the draft plan. And then meet with them again after the plan's approved, provide them help with implementing the plan to be in compliance. So all of that has really paid off. And I would say we would not have been successful had we not have focused on that early on. Another key learning has been on the benefits of having an organization-wide plan. We felt like it was really important to think about language access and language justice from the user perspective, our residents. And we did not want residents to go to town hall and have one experience and then interact with the town through public housing or get on a town bus and then have a very different experience. We wanted to make our services equally language accessible. And we're really excited about that. I think it's an added challenge, but I think it's also a tremendous benefit. Another lesson learned is the need to have dedicated staff time to drive the plan implementation. So this is part of Housing and Communities' core responsibilities at this point. And as we've moved into implementation, we've recognized the tremendous amount of time and energy that it takes and the need to really have dedicated staff for this purpose. And finally, the final lesson learned that I wanted to highlight, and there are many more, was the value of having accountability mechanisms and feedback loops in place. So I mentioned that we are coming up on a year, and we'll be doing our 1-year monitoring review of the plan for compliance and feedback. But I would say even more than that, or just as important, is having that constant feedback from community partners. So we are constantly checking in with our key community partners that work with LEP residents and residents who speak languages other than English, to ask them what communications mechanisms and channels they think would be most appropriate for X, Y, and Z issue, getting their feedback when we do try something out, and making adjustments based on what we hear from them. And that has been really valuable to us through this last year as we've started to implement the plan. So looking ahead to what's next in our language access work, we're preparing to conduct a 1-year evaluation of our plan centered on getting input from residents and community partners. We also are continuing to accelerate the plan implementation through our response to COVID-19. And finally, we hope to have the council consider implementation of the pay incentive for employees as part of their budget process for next year. In conclusion, I want to thank you all for listening to my presentation, and offer that if you want to learn more about our language access work, please check out our website here, where you can find the links to the plan, as well as lots of information about language access. And then also feel free to reach out to me. I've listed my contact information here. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any questions.